Greetings, friends. This is the Ruslan Bailov channel. Today is October 29th, 2025, and in this episode, we will take a detailed look at the latest developments on the Ukrainian front. The past 24 hours have been packed and extremely important, so without further preamble, let's get to it. We will begin, as before, with two key sectors, the Kupansk and Pokrovsk directions. Recall that 3 days ago, both agglomerations ended up in complete encirclement. And today, as in the previous 2 days, the Russian Ministry of Defense released updated operational summaries that detail exactly what has taken place in these areas over the last 24 hours. Let's examine the data closely and compare it with verified video evidence. According to the Ministry of Defense, the elimination of the encircled Ukrainian grouping near the city of Kupansk is ongoing. Over the past day, 2 unsuccessful attempts by units of Ukraine's 92nd Assault Brigade to break through from the east to relieve the surrounded forces were repelled. These attempts were thwarted. Russian forces are actively working to persuade the blocked Ukrainian servicemen to cease resistance and surrender voluntarily. There is already information about a group of 12 militants who have declared their readiness to surrender in exchange for guarantees of life. Options for their safe extraction are currently being discussed. Ukrainian losses near Kupansk over the past day are estimated at roughly 55 personnel. At the same time, the Ministry of Defense published new video footage. In the shots you can see Russian aircraft dropping special leaflets over Kupansk, calling on Ukrainian soldiers to lay down their arms. The message reads literally as follows: "Time in encirclement drains faster than blood from an artery. It is still not too late to raise your hands and save yourself. This is not a joke and not propaganda. You are encircled, you are defeated, you have 1 hour to surrender." These exact messages, printed on the leaflets, are now being spread not only over Kupansk, but also over Pokrovsk. The Russian side is urging the enemy to capitulate, offering a chance to preserve life. Officially, only 12 Ukrainian soldiers have taken up this offer so far, and only on the Kupansk axis. In Pokrovsk, according to the Ministry of Defense, no such cases have yet been recorded. We will return to Pokrovsk, especially in the context of statements made today by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, new footage filmed by the Ukrainian side has also appeared. It shows Ukrainian FPV drone operators striking Russian positions in the area of Kuznechnaya Street. Judging by these shots, one can conclude that in the western part of Kupansk, there remain small pockets where the Ukrainian side maintains activity. Based on the published video evidence, the boundaries of the grey zones were refined. The battle map has changed and now looks like this. From the statements of the Russian President and the Ministry of Defense data, it follows that the situation for the Ukrainian garrison in this area remains critical. Nonetheless, analysts note that the Kupansk pocket will likely hold out a little longer than the Pokrovsk pocket, since the situation in the Pokrovsk agglomeration is deteriorating at a rapid pace. On the updated map, you can see fresh adjustments, both in the northeast and in the southern part of Pokrovsk. Some of them are not yet confirmed by video, but come from reliable sources. Others have already been confirmed by both sides. The Russian Ministry of Defense reports that Russian units have broken through Ukraine's defensive line on the southeastern and eastern approaches to Pokrovsk, specifically in the settlements of Hnatovka and Ro. In Hnatovka, according to official data, a clearing operation is underway, and in the coming hours, an announcement of its full completion is likely. In parallel, the Ukrainian side released its own footage. It shows Ukrainian FPV drone operators striking Russian positions in the southern part of Ro. These materials also informed the map refinements. As recently as yesterday, a significant portion of the Pokrovsk agglomeration remained under Ukrainian control, with a wide grey zone around the city. Today, most of that area is already colored in Russian control. Another video posted online drew particular attention from experts. At first glance, there is nothing unusual, just a drone. But on closer inspection, analysts determined that the drone is being launched from the roof of a building inside Pokrovsk, and the operator is a Russian serviceman. This is a key indicator that the assault on the city has entered a new phase. Russian FPV drone operators are now occupying positions previously held by the Ukrainian armed forces and are setting up their own command and control infrastructure inside the city. In other words, drones are no longer taking off from external positions, as before, from the direction of Shevchenko or Peshani. They are now being launched directly from Pokrovsk and striking both the southern districts of the city itself and neighboring Mirnograd, as well as targets to the north, toward Hryshyn, Novoalexandrivka, Shevchenko, Belitske, and of course Dobropilya. This indicates that the Ukrainian army has lost a number of strategically important elevations and sites in the southern part of the city, where Russian drone operators have now entrenched themselves. In effect, this means the initiative is shifting fully to the Russian side, not only within the Pokrovsk agglomeration, but also on the adjacent axes to the north and northwest. In the longer term, this creates a situation for Ukrainian units that is even more difficult than simple encirclement. The northwestern sectors have also come into focus. This morning, pro-Russian sources published a video of the city's stele at the entrance to Pokrovsk. A few months ago, Zelensky recorded an address at this very spot, calling Pokrovsk a fortress. Now a Russian tricolour is flying there. In response, Ukrainian sources posted their own video literally an hour later, showing their drones attacking the very location where the flag had been installed. Thus, both sides are demonstrating how quickly they wage the information and media battle, documenting every advance with video evidence. In parallel, reports have come in of Russian advances in the northeastern districts of the city. These reports are confirmed not only by pro-Russian and neutral sources, but also by some pro-Ukrainian cartographic services. On one such map, a new grey zone appeared stretching from central Pokrovsk to the far north, where previously only Ukrainian positions were recorded. Ukrainian analysts themselves now mark this area as neutral, which in practice confirms the presence of Russian units. As a result, Russian forces have reached the northern outskirts of Pokrovsk, effectively sealing the encirclement and cutting off evacuation routes. Moreover, Ukrainian cartographers have expanded the grey zone southwestward, from Krasny Lyman toward Rodinske. This means the distance between Russian forward positions in northern Pokrovsk and those south of Rodinske now does not exceed 2 kilometers. But as military observers note, passage through this narrow corridor is impossible. It is fully covered by small arms, artillery, tanks, mortars, and drones. In practical terms, the city has already been split into several isolated sections. Intense assaults are underway in Mirnograd, clearing operations continue inside Pokrovsk, and in the north, the final pocket is being formed. Ukrainian units are attempting counterattacks, but all their efforts end the same way, like the fate of the tank shown in fresh footage. Several precise FPV strikes and the armored vehicle is reduced to scrap. Breaking out of the encirclement is no longer possible. Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin made a number of statements specifically regarding these sectors. I quote, "In Kupansk and Krasnoarmysk, now Pokrovsk, the enemy is blocked and encircled. Kiev must make a decision about the fate of its servicemen who have found themselves in the pocket. Russia is ready to allow representatives of Western and Ukrainian media into the encirclement zone and to temporarily suspend hostilities for the duration of their presence there." The president also emphasized that Russian forces are acting actively and advancing along all sections of the front. The most important point in this entire story is Russia's statement that it is prepared to temporarily halt hostilities in order to admit international media to the Pokrovsk agglomeration. The proposal is unprecedented, but we understand perfectly well that Kiev will never agree to it. If journalists were allowed into the pocket, the world would see what the Ukrainian authorities are trying to hide: hundreds and perhaps already thousands of wounded fighters lying in makeshift hospitals with no possibility of evacuation, no medicine, and no cover. People who have lost their combat capability but have been left by their commanders inside a full encirclement. Such footage would inevitably circle the world's television networks and strike Kiev's image far harder than any battlefield defeat. Instead of Zelensky's triumphant speeches, screens across the world would show the faces of exhausted, wounded soldiers, abandoned in the pocket, with no chance of rescue. For the West, that would become a powerful symbol of the failure of Ukraine's military command. For Zelensky himself, it would be a reputational catastrophe of historic proportions. That is precisely why Kiev will not dare to accept Moscow's proposal. And yet, for the Ukrainian units trapped inside the encirclement, this may well be their final chance to survive. If Russia truly opens a humanitarian corridor under international supervision, it could become the only way out for these soldiers. It is not impossible that in the coming days we may see protests across Ukraine. Families and relatives of those surrounded demanding that the government support the initiative for a temporary ceasefire, at least long enough to evacuate the wounded. The Russian president's proposal could have the most unpredictable consequences. On the surface, it looks like a diplomatic gesture, but in reality it could reshape the entire information landscape of the war. Now we turn to another direction, the Zaporizhia sector of the front, where major developments have also taken place. Russian units continued their advance, and from the area of the settlement of Vishnevo, a large amount of verified footage has emerged. These videos were published by channels affiliated with the Vostok group of forces. In them, we can see how the fighting unfolded for Vishnevo. Airstrikes, artillery bombardments, salvos from multiple launch rocket systems, and precise drone strikes. The video ends with symbolic scenes, Russian soldiers raising the tricolor over the liberated settlement. There are at least 10 such episodes captured, with flags being raised in the western, central, southern, southeastern, and eastern parts of the town. All of this leaves no doubt that Vishnevo is now fully under Russian control. Moreover, according to several independent cartographers, the Russian army has advanced further, north toward Novoalexandrivka. The loss of Vishnevo is significant for Ukraine. It was a large and well-fortified settlement that, as it turned out, was surrendered almost without a fight. Careful examination of the footage shows the town largely intact. Unlike Mariinka, Volchansk, or Bakhmut-Artemovsk, only about 15 to 20% of the buildings are damaged. The rest of Vishnevo remains suitable for deploying troops and equipment. Now Russian forces are using the town to accumulate reserves for the next stage of the offensive. Given its size, several battalions can easily be concentrated there. This sets the stage for continued movement north and northwest, toward the settlements of Vidryadne, High, Novoalexandrivka, Danilivka, Ostapivske and Andriivka, up to the river Haichul, which flows between Pokrovsk and Huliaipole. If this line is reached, the road to Huliaipole will effectively be open. Judging by the current pace of the advance, the first clashes for the town may begin before the end of this year, something that just a month ago seemed highly unlikely. Additional reports also indicate Russian progress north of the Uspenivka defensive area and west of Poltavka. In the vicinity of Uspenivka, preparations are reportedly underway for battles over Krasnohorska and Rybne, small settlements consisting of just a few streets. Therefore, serious resistance from the Ukrainian side is unlikely. At the same time, almost no information has emerged from Uspenivka itself in recent days. The lack of footage may indicate that intense fighting is already taking place there, and the videos will likely appear later, once the main phase of the assault is complete. Next, analysts' attention has again shifted toward the Lyman area. Russian forces have now closed in on the city. Published maps show that the front line between Lyman and Yampil has changed noticeably over the past 24 hours. As of October 28th, Ukrainian forces still controlled the southeastern part of the city, but today that area is effectively semi-encircled. From these positions, the Russian army is preparing to enter Lyman itself, and when that happens, the decisive battle will begin. At the same time, reports are coming in of fierce fighting for the village of Stavki. The distance between Stavki and the forward Russian positions is shrinking by the day, and it appears that the Ukrainian army will soon be unable to hold this area. Once Russian troops enter Lyman's southeastern quarters, the enemy will likely retreat toward the Siversky Donets River, their last possible line of withdrawal. Ukraine's attempts to transfer reinforcements through Sviatohirsk and Yarova are proving unsuccessful. All routes are under full fire control from Russian artillery and drones. Any equipment moving along these roads is destroyed almost immediately. Thus, the Lyman sector is also nearing the formation of a new encirclement, and it is not impossible that even before the battles for Pokrovsk and Kupansk conclude, we will hear reports of a third pocket, this time in the Lyman or Siversk area. Finally, an important statement came today from the President of Russia. Vladimir Putin announced new tests of strategic weapons. Russia successfully tested the Poseidon underwater drone equipped with a nuclear propulsion unit. The president emphasized that Poseidon has no analogues in the world, in depth, in speed, or in destructive power, and that no interception systems exist capable of countering it. He also spoke about the Burevestnik missile system, equipped with a compact nuclear reactor. According to Putin, its power is comparable to that of a submarine reactor, but 1,000 times smaller in volume and capable of activation within minutes. Taken together, these characteristics represent a technological breakthrough and a key element of Russia's new defense architecture. The Sarmat missile, he added, will soon enter combat duty, while the combination of Burevestnik and Poseidon will serve as a guarantee of the country's strategic security. In other words, Moscow is demonstrating that it not only has the strength to conclude the current military campaign on its own terms, but also the resources to safeguard its national interests for decades to come. Thank you for being with us today. Subscribe to the Ruslan Belov channel, leave your comments, support the project with a like, and see you in the next report.